Hello, my dear students. Welcome to the class of 10th English Medium. The subject is Social Science. We are discussing chapter 20 brought to you by Vitan Sir. In my previous tutorial, we discussed the beginning part of the chapter number 20, that is Social Problems of India and Challenges. In that tutorial, we discussed that the main problems, the main social problems, or the main social challenge today in India is communalism and casteism. We discussed what is communalism, we discussed the struggle against communalism, what government should do or what government or people of India has been doing to remove communalism. We also discussed what is caste system, how it discriminates people based on their castes, based on their geographical races, etc. Then we discussed the minorities and then scheduled caste and scheduled tribes of Article 341 and 342. We also studied about the constitutional provisions, the general provisions and special provisions for SC and ST. That was where we ended our last time's tutorial. This time I'm going to start with provisions only for scheduled caste and so on. Provisions only for scheduled caste. According to Article 17, untouchability is totally eradicated. In a sense, scheduled caste are the castes which were considered untouchable once upon a time in India. So, to raise the economical and social level of those untouchable, the lowest of the lowest classes of India, they were given the rating of a scheduled caste so that they could be developed economically. Now it's a different thing that there is kind of a race in India for different castes to be included in this scheduled caste. That's a totally different thing. But once upon a time, scheduled castes were created to upbring economically and socially the untouchable caste of India. So that untouchability has been eradicated, removed. Article 25 gives states the right to frame a law or continue any existing law which permits the public institutions for social welfare or reforms to keep the Hindu religious institutions open to all Hindus. The purpose of enabling this particular article is that the untouchable caste or the lowest of the lowest castes were not allowed to enter the worshipping place, the temples or the specific places where the higher caste usually visited. So to stop that, that means to eradicate any kind of a casteism or caste based discrimination, this particular article was framed so that any caste belonging to Hindu can visit any place belonging to Hindu. No lower caste, no upper caste, all are to be considered same. That is the purpose of the application of this particular article. Hindu includes Sikhs, Jains and Buddhist, and Hindu religious institutions include all the religious institutions of Sikh, Jain and Buddhist. So Sikhs, Jain, Buddhist as well as Vedic, all of these are part of Hindu. Now this is specifically written here because all these four religions originated from India. All the remaining religions, all other religions which are practiced in India are foreign religions. Only the Vedic, Jain, Buddhist and Sikh religion are from India, which started in India. We can say they are Indian religion. Provisions only for scheduled tribes. Now these are the provisions for those tribal people residing in the innermost areas of India. Article 19 brackets 5 empowers the governors of the states to impose restrictions in the interest of scheduled caste over the right to unrestricted movement of people to any region. Now, let me clarify this sentence here. The people of India has the fundamental right to go to any place in India. That means going to any place in India cannot be stopped by anyone. That is our fundamental right. But due to this right, sometimes tribal people are exploited. The meaning is that the tribal people don't have the good understanding of the economical and societal rules. So sometimes the greedy people buy the fertile lands from the tribal people at almost zero rates, and then develop industries and tourism and economic facilities on those lands and profit a lot. So to stop this, stop the exploitation of tribal people, our fundamental right of unrestricted movement is controlled by the state. For example, there is a law stating that non-tribal people, people like us, cannot buy lands from the tribal people. So that our fundamental right of buying anything anywhere has been restricted for the purpose of uh, saving tribal people from the exploitation. So there are certain kind of rules and regulations, powers provided to state government to restrict our fundamental rights. For example, right now in the epidemic situation, we have been stopped, we have been restricted from moving freely, which was our fundamental right in the so called interest of the general public. But that power have been given to the government in the cases of extreme necessities. Yes, to movement, settle down, to acquire property, or to carry out any business or trade. So regular people can't go into the notified tribal areas and do business and buy lands and settle down there. They can't do that. Normal people can't do that to the in the tribal areas. So that tribal people are preserved properly. Such rights give authority to restrict exploitation in the tribal regions about land transactions, money lending, and other exploitations of scheduled tribes, and to frame special laws to protect them. So, such kind of laws have been created so that money laundering or land transactions or other kind of business activities cannot exploit tribal people who does not have that practical knowledge or practical understanding of the world. In conclusion, various schemes and programs have been started by the government for the development of SC, ST, and backward, that is OBC. That is why their condition is improving. Many people have got an opportunity to progress socially, economically, and politically. Terrorism. Now we are moving towards the last concept of this chapter, that is terrorism. Terrorism has been a problem for human society since a long time. It is a global problem. It's not restricted to a particular nation or a particular group of nations. It is actually an international issue. Terrorism leads to destruction of human rights, bloodshed, destruction, fear, chaos, violence, unrest, etc. Although terrorism has no connection with any religion or sect, yet by linking terrorism with religion, terrorists are getting indulged in cowardice and hateful act. That means terrorism does not necessarily belong to a single religion. Majority of people belong to Muslim, but that does not mean that Muslims are terrorists. Usually terrorists take the mental of Islamism to justify their acts, but technically, no religion on earth can justify the acts of terrorism. It doesn't matter whether terrorists call themselves Muslims or Christians or even Hindus, terrorists are terrorists. They use religion for their own purposes and they defame the religion itself. But terrorism never belongs to a particular religion. Terrorism belongs to those people with corrupt mindsets and very violent mentalities. Terrorism is a hindrance in the progress of a nation. Terrorism is related to violence, which openly violates the principle of live and let live. जियो और जीने दो. Terrorism is an organized, planned and deliberate violent act. ये एक प्लान होता है, उसको ऑर्गेनाइज करने में आता है और वो जानबूझकर किया जाता है. कोई ऐसा गलती से ऐसा नहीं बोल सकता कि वो गलती से मैंने बॉम्ब डाल के बिल्डिंग को उड़ा दिया. नो वन कैन से दैट. Everything has been planned, organized in advance with a particular object of spreading terrorism and their own views and ideals and imposing them on other people. Terrorists are engaged in violent activities like suicide attacks, throwing bombs, hiding weapons, and using them, kidnapping people, hijacking planes or hijacking automobiles, suicide attacks, smuggling of narcotic drugs, etc. All of these are part of terrorism. Uh, there is another word, rebellion, and sometimes people use terrorism in place of rebellion, but I believe it is not true. Terrorism and rebellion has a very distinct difference, and let us be very clear about what is the meaning of a rebellion and what is the meaning of a terrorism. Rebellion is a national problem. That means rebellion is an internal problem of a nation. Let me tell you clearly. Right now, if farmers are protesting against the government, that is not a terrorism. Number one thing, it is a kind of a rebellion. They are rebelling against the laws of government. They are people of India, and they are not doing it in some other foreign country. They are doing it against their own government. So that is not terrorism. While terrorism is a global problem which includes not just any single nation, it includes all the nations of the world. Rebellion is at a regional level. For example, in Punjab or Haryana or Delhi or Maharashtra or Gujarat, some regional issues are there and regional governments are included, while terrorism is from one nation to another nation, from one continent to another continent, and it may be against own government, but mostly it is against the government of others. For example, terrorists of Pakistan or Iraq, Iran or Taliban uh, spreading terrorist activities in America or Russia or India. Rebellion is always carried out with the help of local people, because rebellions are usually against the corrupt officials of the government. Therefore, local people are always with the rebels, because rebels are actually working in the favor of the local people, while terrorism usually does not get support from the local people. Now Kashmir is a kind of an exception, because terrorists have brainwashed the people of Kashmir that they are fighting for the purpose of freeing Kashmir. So many local people support terrorists in Kashmir, and many local people do not support terrorism in Kashmir. So terrorists may not get support from the local people. Development of state is suffering from the problem of rebellion. That means if rebellion goes on for a very long period of time, then the local development of a state is hindered, stopped, or it remains underdeveloped. While if terrorism is carried on for a very long period of time, then the whole nation's development is at stake. The nation's development is stopped and it suffers from the terrorism. So we see that rebellion originates from the local dissatisfaction, and there is no such restriction on terrorism. For terrorism can be between countries, between continents, all over the world, while rebellion is just at a regional or a national level. Another important thing which we need to know apart from terrorism and rebellion is the Naxalite movement. Inspired by the Chinese Revolution under the leadership of Mao Zedong, some Naxalites started this insurgency in India for the first time in 1967 in West Bengal. In the year 1967 in West Bengal, this in the village of Naxal Bari, this movement was started, and that's why it is known as Naxalist movement. The story behind that movement, which is not given here, is that the farmers were oppressed a lot by the current government officials of that village or that district, and they were harassed, they were oppressed, they were exploited too cruelly and violently, and therefore ultimately farmers tried in their way whatever they could, but no results were seen, and thus they took up weapons. Now, violence is no way acceptable, but they took up weapons and they killed government officials. They revolted against the government itself, and today this movement has spread among the farmers. Most of these Naxalite movements include farmers. Of course, that Naxalite movement, which started for the well-being of the current population, has today again become another kind of a political movement itself. Uh, the main purpose was the well-being of farmers, but if we see, these states are one of the least developed. For example, Jharkhand, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, all of these states has this Naxalite movement in them, and the regions where this movement is spread is not well developed. We can say they are not developed due to this movement going on. The government officials might be wrong, but the method of this Naxalite movement is not correct. It is wrong too. So this movement has been spread now in Jharkhand, Bihar, Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Kerala, Odisha, Tripura, Madhya Pradesh, mainly the mountainous and the forest regions. There are two organizations which are carrying forward this movement, Naxalist movement, that is People's War Group and Maoist Communist Center. Insurgents in Northeast. Many groups in Northeast regions, we call it the Seven Sisters, the small seven states, like seven states in a cluster like formation on the Northeast region of India. There are many groups wanting separate nations for themselves, and we call that insurgents. It's a very big problem for India since many years. These factors want either a tribal nation or hilly and forest land, and among the militant means warring groups, and they also want their own state, or they want their separate nation. They want to separate from India to get their own independently ruled nation. So in all of these states, these are the various organizations which are working for this purpose. In Nagaland, National Socialist Council of Nagaland is a kind of a rebellious organization. In Manipur, Kuki National Front and Kuki National Army are the organizations working for separatist movement and rebellions. In Tripura, National Liberation Front of Tripura, All Tripura Tigers Force, and Tripura Upajati Jupa Samiti are the organizations which are rebelling against government. In Assam, United Liberation Front of Assam, United Minority Front, National Democratic Front of Bodoland, and Bodoland Liberation Tiger Force. Now, this Bodoland is a name of a separate nation which they want to create, free out, independent from India itself. So they have named it Bodoland, and they have created organization for that purpose. These rebellion organizations have been struggling for the demand of a separate state to secure their own political economic interest, or on the questions of illegal immigration. So because of it, economic, social, administrative and political systems are damaged a lot in these states. Terrorism in Kashmir. India became independent in 15th August 1947. Two separate nations, India and Pakistan, were formed, and just after getting independence, in just a month or two, Pakistan attacked Kashmir, and the today's Pakistan occupied Kashmir was captured by Pakistan at that point in time, and therefore the issue of Jammu and Kashmir is still standing. Still, Pakistan tries to capture it every now and then. It has even fought wars for this, and in every war, India inflicted a great defeat to Pakistan. But still, Pakistan occupied Kashmir has not been recovered. Terrorism has increased in Kashmir after 1988. The terrorists have terrorized people by kidnapping, murders, bomb explosion, etc. to fulfill their motive. As a result of it, families of many Kashmiri Pandit had to migrate. Thousands of such families are living as refugees outside Kashmir. terrorism in Kashmir is supported from across the board. That means whatever the terrorism in Kashmir is seen today, I am not talking about the local people rebelling against government. I am talking about the terrorism, terrorists coming across the border in Kashmir to rebel, to terrorize the Kashmir and fight against government. The intention of the terrorist is to create fear and instability in India. India is determined to face them firmly. India opposes terrorism not only in India but also anywhere in any form at any time. In order to end terrorism, soldiers of India have accepted martyrdom. That means too many, numerous soldiers of India have been martyred for the purpose of stopping terrorism. Terrorism has two kinds of effect on any nation, that is social effect and economic effect. Terrorism leads to disintegration of the nation. A nation terrorized by the terrorists disintegrates, it breaks down, it stops developing. Terrorism creates a feeling of fear and suspicion among the people because the activities like fear, robbery, violence, its effect is felt in all age groups. Education suffers adversely in terrorism affected areas because people are constantly afraid of not just terrorists but even each other because they don't know which person will become a terrorist next. Due to the robbery, the violence, the murders, the killings, the kidnappings, people suffer as a society. Even the children are not able to be educated properly due to the constant fear of terrorism and bomb blasts. As a result of terrorism, mutual faith and feeling of brotherhood diminishes. Because terrorism is there, people don't believe each other, they don't trust each other, and therefore the brotherhood, the mutual feeling of love and compassion slowly disintegrates into a hatred and rivalry. Many times it leads to communal conflicts and social arrangements are shred into fragments because communal conflicts sometimes are led due to terrorism. Just let me take an example that sometimes when Muslim terrorists from out of the nation attacks Hindu temple or some other place of religion, the local Hindus vent their anger on local Muslims who did not have any hand in that. So that external terrorism causes internal communal riots against totally unknowing, totally unrelated people. So this is the problem, the social conflict created due to terrorism. People cannot celebrate social functions with enthusiasm. As a result of it, interrelations connecting people are disrupted because social festivals are a method of creating bonds between people, and when people are not able to celebrate these functions freely, their bonds diminish, and therefore their relationships are spoiled. Economic impact of terrorism. Now economic means monetary method. In the case of money, in the case of economy of nation, how it is impacted with terrorism. Because of terrorism, development of business and industry is not created, so the business and trade relations are adversely affected. Due to negative effect on business, people migrate to other places. If due to terrorism in Kashmir, it is seen many times that the people of Kashmir migrate to other states, or the people of Kashmir migrate to even other nations because Kashmir is constantly uh, impacted due to heavy terrorist activities. Some terrorist organizations extort money from rich industrialists, employees, and businessmen. Terrorists are engaged in anti-social activities like drug trafficking and black money. And due to that, the socio-economic problems are created in the country. Terrorists destroy railways, radio stations, roads, bridges, government offices, and for the rebuilding and repairing of all this, crores, not just crores, billions of money is spent, which damages the economy of the nation. Government has to spend billions of rupees for the safety and protection from the terrorists. That is, we can say the military and the RPF and paramilitary forces of India. As a result of terrorism, state and national transportation industry, tourism industry have to suffer a great loss. Thus, terrorism is socially as well as economically harmful, and thus it is necessary to solve this problem. Thus, our chapter number 20 ends. The chapter number 20, the social problems of India and challenges. We studied today about provisions only for SC and only for ST. What is terrorism? The difference between rebellion and terrorism. The Naxalite movements, the separatists and insurgents in the northeast regions of Nagaland, Manipur, Tripura, Assam. The terrorism in Kashmir and the social and economic impacts or effects of terrorism on not just India but any nation in the world. I hope you guys liked my explanation. I hope you guys have understood this chapter, these topics properly. In case of any doubts or queries, you can contact me personally or you can write down in the comment section below. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you are new to this channel, please subscribe. You can find my old videos related to social science in my playlist of the channel, class 10th English medium social science GSEB. Thank you very much once again for watching this tutorial, and I will see you guys in my next chapter.